everyone, welcome back to another lesson. Tonight we're going to be continuing our discussion about David. Now last week we talked about how he was a shepherd boy, and King Saul had gone against the words of the Lord. Remember, he was not to take anything for himself, but he did. He took the cattle and the sheep, and he left the king of the Amalekites alive, of which he was not supposed to do. On top of that, he did the offering, of which only the prophets were allowed to do. So King Saul would then be replaced. So Prophet Samuel went to the house of Jesse, and David was anointed with oil there. Or in other words, it was shown that he was chosen by God. King Saul's upset. Servants give him an idea, and he sends a messenger to go get David and bring him to the palace to play music for him. Well, at this time, the Philistines are coming in to Israel, into Judah, and they set up camp there. And so King Saul takes his army, and they go and set up camp there as well, where the Philistines are as well. The Bible tells us that on one mountain there's the Philistines, and on another there are the Israelites. Right in the middle is a valley. So their champion, the Philistines, comes down to that valley, and he says to the Israelite army, "Send me a man to come fight me. If he kills me, we, the Philistines, will become your slaves. But if I happen to kill your man, you all become our slaves." Goliath was a giant. Now, he would have been a little over 9 feet. Normally when we think of giants, we think of almost skyscrapers, but really they would have been 9 to 11 feet tall. So what happens is that the Israelites are now terrified. Goliath was a champion. He had not lost a battle before. So they ran and hid. For 40 days, Goliath would go down into the valley and he would challenge the Israelites, but they would not send someone to go and fight him. Well, when King Saul left the palace, David went back to Bethlehem to take care of his father's sheep. Well, Jesse, the father, comes to David and says, "You know what? I think it's a good idea if you take your brothers some food," almost like a care package. So David found someone to take care of the sheep while he was gone. So David gets to the camp, and he gets there as Goliath is actually coming down into the valley. And he challenges Israel again, and everyone goes into hiding. So David started walking around and asking the soldiers, "Hey, why aren't you fighting him?" "Oh, because he's terrifying. We can't fight him, we can't win." And so he goes to the next soldier, and the next one, and the next one. Even in his his three older brothers were there, and one of them got angry with David because he heard what he was saying. So, and pretty much what he was saying was, "Why should we fear? Lord's on our side." News gets around fast at the camp, and King Saul hears about David, so he calls him into his tent. And he pretty much tells David that he's a little boy. He can't go out and fight. David then points out that while taking care of his father's sheep, not only did a lion come, but so did a bear. Both of these came to take a sheep. He said that the Lord delivered them into his hands. In other words, the Lord protected him and helped him kill these two animals and keep the sheep safe. He said, "If the Lord will protect me from these two beasts, surely he will protect me from Goliath." So King Saul says, "Okay, here's my armor and here's my sword. Let's get it on." So he helps David, he gets it on him, but it's much too heavy for David. Remember, he's probably just now entering his youth ages, so he's really young. David's like, "No, this is not going to work." He couldn't carry the sword, and like I just said, the armor was too big for him. So he took it all off, and he went down to a little brook that's near the camp. In other words, a little stream or a river, and he chose 5 stones out of this stream, and he put it into a little pouch on his side. He then went down into the valley. Goliath would wait there all day long. And he did that for 40 days. So David comes, and Goliath, he's just kind of looking around, and all of a sudden he sees like this little child coming to him. Now, Goliath was an experienced soldier. He had not lost a battle before. It's pretty insulting that the other army would send out a child to fight you. It was really insulting, and Goliath even pointed that out, asking if he was a dog to them. So they talk a little, and David told Goliath that the Lord would deliver him into his hands. He then takes his sling, takes one of the stones, and hurls it at Goliath. And what happens is that the Bible tells us that it hit him right in the forehead and it sunk in. On top of that, if something was to hit you in the forehead, you would fall backwards. Goliath didn't. He fell forwards. This gives us the idea that David was not the one who knocked Goliath down. It was the Lord, because if you were to fall forward, you were to be pushed. And so David then kills Goliath, and the Philistines are terrified. This child had just defeated their champion. And so they ran. They were terrified. They began to run all over the place. Well, everyone gets back home to Israel, and news travels quickly. Everyone's talking about David, how he defeated Goliath, and King Saul did not like this talk at all, because he became very jealous of David. Now, David was sitting in the palace and playing music to him, and he tried to kill David. David would run for his life and go into hiding. King Saul would try and hunt him down, but then he would feel sorry, feel bad about what he had done, apologize to David, and they both go back to the palace. But then the jealousy would come back. It would continue to grow. He would try to kill David. Whole thing starts over again. Well, unfortunately, Israel had to go to war again, and King Saul, as he was leading the armies, was killed during that battle. And then David was made king over Israel. I hope that y'all enjoyed tonight's lesson. I can't wait to see y'all next week.